The Void Reavers, a ruthless crew of space pirates, had built their reputation on pillaging the richest ships across the galaxy. Led by the cunning and fearless Captain Farn, they knew how to strike fast, hard, and without mercy. They were notorious for preying on the weak and unprepared, raiding mining colonies, trade vessels, and even small military outposts with ease. But when the pirates intercepted a transmission about an upcoming shipment headed for a remote mining colony, something felt off. The cargo was rumored to contain rare and valuable technology, something far more precious than the usual minerals they stole. It was an opportunity too good to pass up. At first, the pirates saw it as another routine job. A small, unarmed convoy, surrounded by nothing more than an outdated defense fleet, would be easy pickings for the Void Reavers. But when the pirate scouts first got a glimpse of the convoy, they noticed something different. There were human escort ships protecting the cargo. These ships were new, sleek, and heavily armed, clearly designed to deter any potential threats. This was the first time the Void Reavers had come across a human force like this. For a moment, there was hesitation among the pirates. Humans weren't known for their spacefaring prowess, at least, not in the way the pirates had seen other species fight. Captain Farn, who had led countless raids without breaking a sweat, dismissed the threat with a chuckle. "Humans, easy prey. We've taken down entire fleets more impressive than this," he scoffed, waving away the concern. To him, it was just another convoy, another loot haul, and another story for the crew. They'd board the convoy, overpower the human escorts, and take what they wanted without breaking a sweat. But deep down, a small nagging thought lingered in Farn's mind, a thought he quickly pushed aside. The humans, despite their unassuming appearance, were proving to be more than just an obstacle. Still, his arrogance overshadowed any doubts. The pirates prepared for the attack, confident in their abilities, ready to claim their prize. They believed they had the upper hand, but this would be just another easy loot. Yet, something in the air felt strange. The Void Reavers had no idea that this shipment, guarded by human hands, would turn out to be their biggest challenge yet. The moment the Void Reavers unleashed their attack, they expected the human escorts to crumble under pressure, just like the countless civilian ships they had plundered in the past. Their ships swarmed the convoy, weapons ready, and their battle-hardened crews prepared for another quick and easy victory. But as the first shots were fired, something strange happened. The human ships didn't scatter or retreat like they had anticipated. Instead, they held their ground, moving with precision and coordination that was entirely unexpected. The pirates fired again, thinking that a few well-placed blasts would send the human ships running, but they were wrong. The humans didn't falter. They adapted. In moments of chaos, the human escorts began to move as one, shifting in patterns that confused the pirates. Every time the Void Reavers tried to outflank them, the humans countered, using unorthodox maneuvers that seemed almost pre-planned. It wasn't just a battle, it was a game of cat and mouse, and the humans were playing it better. As the skirmish continued, Captain Farn couldn't shake the growing sense of unease. His crew was experienced, having taken on far larger threats, but these humans weren't acting like any foes he had ever faced. Their ships seemed to anticipate the pirates' every move, adjusting in real time with an uncanny level of coordination. It wasn't just the technology on their ships, though impressive, that had the pirates on edge. It was the way the humans fought. There was a certain ingenuity in their tactics, a level of teamwork that was beyond what any ordinary crew could manage. Each ship in the human fleet appeared to communicate silently, working together in ways that defied the pirates' expectations. It was like they knew what the Void Reavers would do before they did it. As the battle raged on, Captain Farn found himself questioning everything. Who were these humans? Where had they come from? And why were they so different from every other species he had encountered? His confidence began to crack as the Void Reavers found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. The pirates' initial arrogance gave way to frustration. It was no longer about just defeating the humans. It was about figuring out how they could fight back against this unexpected force. Tharn's crew had dealt with mercenaries, soldiers, and even other pirates, but this was different. These humans weren't just defending their cargo, they were fighting with a determination and tactical brilliance that was beyond anything the Void Reavers had prepared for. With each passing moment, the pirates realized that they had underestimated their opponents in a way they never had before. The humans weren't backing down. They weren't afraid. They were fighting smarter, and every decision Tharn made seemed to play right into their hands. This wasn't just a skirmish anymore. It was a battle of wits, and the Void Reavers were losing. The battle raged on, and despite the surprise and shock the Void Reavers had faced, they managed to score a few hits on the human ships. Some of the human escorts were damaged, drifting through space with smoke and sparks trailing from their hulls, but they didn't fall apart. The pirates, confident that they had finally gained an upper hand, began preparing for a full boarding action. It seemed like a victory was within their reach. But then, just as they were about to close in for the kill, something unexpected happened. Without warning, every single human ship activated a cloaking system. The Void Reaver's sensors immediately went haywire, picking up false signals and ghost images of ships that weren't there. The pirates scrambled to adjust, but it was chaos. The human fleet seemed to vanish from view, leaving only a trail of confusing signals behind. Captain Tharn, now both frustrated and confused, ordered his crew to hold tight and track anything they could. "They've got to be somewhere," he muttered, his grip tightening on the controls. What the pirates didn't know was that this was only the beginning. As they fumbled to reorient themselves, trying to regain control, the human escorts revealed their true weapon, not just their technology, but their intelligence. They weren't just hiding, they were leading the pirates into a trap. A small group of human ships, appearing to be heavily damaged and struggling, took the lead, drawing the Void Reavers' attention. Tharn, eager for the kill, followed them, believing the humans were desperate and running. But the pirates soon realized they had been missiled. The humans had carefully anticipated their every move, and now they had maneuvered the Void Reavers straight into an asteroid field. At first, the pirates thought it was an easy opportunity. The humans were now cornered, surrounded by the dense cluster of asteroids, with no easy escape. Captain Tharn ordered his ships to pursue, thinking they had finally trapped their prey. But the moment they entered the asteroid field, it became clear they had underestimated the human strategy once again. What appeared to be a disadvantage for the humans turned into a deadly gauntlet. The small human fleet, expertly navigated, darted through the dense rock field, dodging and weaving with ease. Meanwhile, the Void Reavers, larger and slower, struggled to keep up, crashing into asteroids and narrowly avoiding collisions. The humans had already anticipated the pirates' movements, using the chaos of the asteroid field to their advantage. Hidden behind rocks and debris, the human ships launched surprise counterattacks, firing from positions the pirates never saw coming. The pirates found themselves scattered, vulnerable, and unable to regroup. Each move they made seemed to play into the hands of the human escorts. As the Void Reavers lost more ships to asteroid collisions and surprise attacks, Captain Tharn began to realize the grim truth. They were no longer the hunters. They were the prey. The once feared pirates were now being forced into retreat. Desperate to save what little was left of his fleet, Tharn ordered a full retreat, signaling for his ships to pull out of the asteroid field. But it was too late. The damage had been done. The Void Reavers had lost valuable ships, their crews shaken, and their pride shattered. As they limped away from the scene, with their once great fleet now in disarray, Tharn couldn't help but feel the weight of his arrogance. These humans had not only survived, they had turned the tables and forced the pirates into a humiliating retreat. They had been outsmarted, and in the end, the pirates realized that underestimating the humans might be the greatest mistake they had ever made. The Void Reavers limped away from the asteroid field, their fleet severely damaged and their pride shattered. As they regrouped in the empty space beyond the field, Captain Tharn stood on the bridge, glaring at the empty space ahead. How could they have lost to mere humans? His mind raced, trying to make sense of it. The humans, with their clever tactics and unexpected resilience, had thrown his entire crew off balance. He could feel his frustration building as his thoughts circled around that one humiliating question: why? These humans weren't supposed to be this skilled, weren't supposed to have a strategy capable of outsmarting the Void Reavers. He looked to his second-in-command, Rika, a sharp and loyal officer, and ordered her to investigate further. "Find out who they really are," Tharn growled. "What makes them so different? We need answers." Rika nodded, her face as focused as ever, and immediately set to work. Meanwhile, the human escorts, despite the damage they had suffered, had retreated to a nearby mining colony, an isolated outpost deep within the sector. The pirates assumed that the humans would take refuge there, as it was one of the few places where they could resupply and regroup. What the Void Reavers didn't know was that the colony was more than just a hideout. It was a stronghold, and hidden within it was the real cargo, something far more valuable and dangerous than any precious minerals. As the pirates slowly repaired their ships and tended to their wounds, the tension aboard the Void Reaver fleet grew. The loss stung more than they cared to admit. Even the boldest among them were beginning to question the captain's leadership, and as the hours dragged on, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that the battle wasn't over, not by a long shot. When Rika finally returned with her report, the look on her face told Captain Tharn that the truth was far more unsettling than he had imagined. The humans were no ordinary soldiers. "They're a special task force, Captain," Rika said, her voice low and serious. "Trained for extreme survival in hostile environments. They're not just defending cargo, they're protecting something much bigger." Tharn's mind whirred as he listened. Special forces, he hadn't expected that. The Void Reavers had taken on mercenaries, bounty hunters, and even elite military units, but this was different. These humans weren't just soldiers, they were survivors, capable of thriving in the harshest conditions. But Rika's words didn't end there. As she handed Tharn a datapad, she continued, "The cargo they're guarding. It's not just technology or minerals. It's a weapon, a powerful one that could change the course of the war between factions. If they get it to their people." She trailed off, and the weight of her words hung in the air. Captain Tharn's expression darkened. This was no longer just about a quick score or a new treasure. The humans were protecting something that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. If they allowed it to fall into the hands of the humans' enemies, it could turn the tide of the ongoing war in ways the pirates couldn't even predict. This wasn't just a mission for loot. It was a race for control of a dangerous weapon. The pirates had failed once, but now they understood the stakes. It wasn't just about pride or victory. It was about preventing the human task force from securing the weapon and potentially starting a new chapter in the war. With this new information, Captain Tharn's anger turned to determination. The pirates may have been forced to retreat, but they weren't about to back down. If the humans wanted to keep this weapon safe, they would have to fight for it, and the Void Reavers were ready to bring the full force of their power to bear. The tension among the pirates only grew stronger as they prepared for their next move, knowing this was a battle they couldn't afford to lose. Captain Tharn paced the bridge of the Void Reaver flagship, his thoughts consumed by the next move. His crew was determined to reclaim their honor and seize the mysterious cargo, no matter what it took. The defeat at the asteroid field still stung, and Tharn was growing impatient. This time, he wouldn't underestimate the humans. He had a plan, a simple one: overwhelm them with numbers. The pirates had more ships, more firepower, and more experience. Surely they couldn't fail again. He ordered a full assault on the mining colony, confident that the sheer force of their attack would force the human escorts to retreat. But what Tharn didn't realize was that the humans had been preparing for this very moment. They knew the Void Reavers would strike again, and they had set a trap long before the pirates even had a chance to plan their next move. As the pirates advanced toward the colony, they felt an eerie calm settle over the fleet. They were closing in, ready to launch their attack, but something felt off. The usual warning signs, the sense of immediate danger, weren't there. The humans were either hiding or they had abandoned the colony entirely. But Farn was wrong. As the Void Reavers pushed forward, they fell straight into the web of human ingenuity. The first sign of trouble came when their lead ships suddenly fired upon what appeared to be empty defensive positions. It didn't make sense. Why would the humans leave their defenses unguarded? But then the pirates realized the truth. The defenses weren't empty at all. They were decoys, part of a carefully laid trap designed to lure the pirates in. And the humans weren't done yet. As the pirates pushed deeper into the colony's outer perimeter, they encountered more traps, false readings, hidden obstacles, and unexpected defensive systems that had been rigged to confuse them. What Farn had thought would be a simple attack turned into a nightmare of misdirection. The pirates were scattered, losing precious time as they struggled to understand what was happening. But the real shock came when the pirates started hearing strange messages broadcasted through their communication channels. The voices were distorted, twisted, psychological warfare. The humans were messing with their minds. Static-filled voices, strange laughter, and eerie sounds echoed through the pirate ships, creating a sense of paranoia. The pirates, who had always prided themselves on their fearlessness, began to second-guess themselves. Were they being watched? Were their every move anticipated? The human tactics weren't just physical, they were mental. The pirates felt like they were being toyed with. Every time they thought they had gained the upper hand, something else would happen to throw them off track. A sudden blast from a hidden weapon here, a shift in the decoy defenses there. It became clear. The humans weren't just trying to fight, they were trying to break the pirates' spirits. Captain Farn, who had always been so certain of his crew's capabilities, now found himself questioning everything. His once confident officers were starting to panic. Even the boldest of the crew were rattled, unsure of where the real danger lay. The humans weren't fighting to win a single battle. They were playing a long game, and the pirates were caught right in the middle of it. Farn's mind raced. Every time they tried to take control, the humans were already one step ahead, thinking several moves in advance. The Void Reavers were no longer the ones leading the fight. They were just reacting to what the humans had already set into motion. In that moment, Farn began to doubt whether his crew could pull off the victory. If they couldn't get past the mental warfare and the constant traps, how could they possibly defeat the humans and seize the cargo? With each passing minute, the pirates' advantage slipped further away. And worse yet, Captain Farn couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were waiting for something, waiting for them to make one wrong move that would end the conflict once and for all. Captain Farn stood on the bridge of his flagship, his gaze locked on the mining colony ahead. The Void Reavers had been pushed to their limits, humiliated by the humans' cunning and resilience. This time, Farn was done playing games. He had no more patience for tricks or traps. There would be no more underestimating the humans. He could see no way around it. The only option left was to capture the cargo by force. His fleet, battered but still formidable, was ready for one final assault. Farn ordered his ships to form a tight perimeter around the colony, cutting off any possible escape routes for the human escorts. The humans had nowhere to run. They would have to fight. As his fleet took position, Farn's eyes narrowed. He could already hear the crew of his ships rallying, eager for the final push. The pirate captain had always known that the Void Reavers could win any battle, no matter the odds. But what Farn didn't understand was that the humans had been waiting for this very moment. The pirates' confidence blinded him to the most important factor, the human resilience. The human task force, their backs against the wall, wasn't about to surrender without a fight. The first shots fired, and the Void Reavers thought they had the upper hand, but they quickly realized something was wrong. This wasn't the chaotic retreat they were used to. The humans weren't running, they were digging in, preparing for the final battle. The escort ships used every inch of the terrain to their advantage, positioning themselves in ways that forced the Void Reavers into narrow spaces where their larger ships couldn't maneuver. The humans didn't just rely on firepower, they relied on strategy, exploiting every flaw in the pirate ships. With pinpoint accuracy, the human crews launched surprise attacks on weak points in the Void Reaver's vessels, taking out weapon systems and navigation controls before the pirates even knew what hit them. Each Void Reaver ship that fell wasn't due to overwhelming force. It was because the humans had identified their weaknesses and struck when the pirates were most vulnerable. One by one, pirate ships were disabled, caught in a series of well-timed ambushes that turned the tide of battle. It wasn't just about guns and missiles anymore. It was about human determination, the kind of resilience that didn't come from superior numbers, but from the deep-rooted belief that they could survive and win against all odds. Captain Farn watched in growing disbelief as the human task force systematically dismantled his fleet. His pride, once unshakable, began to crack. The Void Reavers were skilled, but they weren't ready for this kind of fight. They were used to overwhelming their enemies, crushing them with sheer power. But this was different. The humans weren't retreating. They were responding, outthinking the pirates at every turn. With each passing moment, the realization settled in. The humans weren't just fighting to protect the cargo. They were fighting for their survival, for their homes, and for their future. The Void Reavers, despite their power and experience, were losing. Farn's last-ditch effort was slipping through his fingers. His fleet was being torn apart, not by force, but by the unseen strength of the human will. As the final Void Reaver ships began to fall, Farn knew the battle was lost. He had miscalculated. In his rush for revenge, he had forgotten what had made the humans so dangerous in the first place. That unbreakable spirit. The pirate captain stood still, his mind racing, as the remnants of his fleet retreated in disarray. The final stand had ended, and it was the humans who had emerged victorious, not because they had more firepower, but because they had fought smarter. For the first time in a long while, Captain Farn felt defeated, not by the strength of the enemy, but by the strength of their resolve. The humans had won. The aftermath of the final battle was a scene of chaos and loss for the Void Reavers. What had begun as a calculated attack for loot and glory had turned into a disaster. Many of their ships had been destroyed, their crew members lost, and their pride shattered beyond repair. The survivors limped away, nursing wounds both physical and mental. Captain Farn stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. He could feel the weight of their defeat pressing down on him, heavier than any burden he had ever carried. His mind kept returning to the same thought. How had it all gone wrong? Farn had always believed that the Void Reavers were unbeatable. With their experience, firepower, and ruthless tactics, they had plundered countless systems, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. But these humans, they were different. As the captain's thoughts turned inward, a deep realization began to settle in. The humans were not just soldiers, they were something far more dangerous. They were survivors. They had fought not for wealth, not for glory, but for something far more meaningful, their people, a way of life. They fought because they had no choice. Farn's eyes narrowed. He had underestimated them. These humans were not afraid to lose, because, for them, losing meant the end of everything. The Void Reavers, with all their strength and experience, could not defeat such a force of will. The pirates had come into the conflict thinking it would be easy. They had thought the humans would flee or break under the pressure. But the humans hadn't flinched. They had stood firm, showing a resolve that even the Void Reavers couldn't break. As the pirates left the system, defeated and humiliated, the humans returned to their duties. The mining colony resumed its work, and the Escorts, now tested in battle, was stronger than ever. The Void Reavers, their hopes dashed, set a course for the next target, but the confidence that once fueled them had been replaced by a quiet uncertainty. Captain Farn, though still a fierce pirate leader, couldn't ignore the humbling truth. He had underestimated the human spirit, and that was something he would never forget. As he stood at the helm, his thoughts drifted back to the events that had unfolded. The humans had not only secured their cargo, but they had also solidified something else in the galaxy, their reputation. The word would spread quickly. The humans were no longer just a race to be ignored or easily defeated. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the pirate captain let the silence fill the bridge, he muttered to himself, almost as if admitting the defeat out loud, "Pirates thought it was easy loot until they saw the human escorts." The words hung in the air, heavy with the knowledge that they had lost more than just a battle. They had lost their belief in their invincibility. Meanwhile, the humans stood victorious, the battle now a thing of the past. Their cargo was secure, their people safe, and their position in the galaxy undeniably strengthened. They had faced the pirates and won, not just because they had the firepower, but because they had the resolve to see it through. And in the grand scheme of things, that was far more powerful than any weapon or treasure. The pirates had learned a hard lesson that day. Humanity, though smaller in numbers and often underestimated, was capable of great things when their survival was on the line. And as the Void Reavers retreated into the unknown, that lesson would echo in the back of Captain Farn's mind for a long time to come. The humans were no longer just another target. They were a force, one that no pirate could ignore.